Hello, species value nature system, species co-chair. Speed game for Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, and value before and beyond this. As simultaneous nature, we can show you how sequence nature is a juxtaposition of simultaneous natures of value and of overall value's relationship to itself. Overall body value and finite in relationship to identity value as all values at once. As identity value is a simultaneous nature while being the sequence nature of the juxtaposition of each of the identities complete of your body, simultaneously an unceasing semi-nature relationship to our identity, because identity has a hierarchal relationship to identity itself, whereas in how our complete identity is simultaneously an unceasing semi-nature relationship to the identity of all things at once. Bach sings to Campus Dunce, we need the name returned, Campus Marcius, now returns. So, we have unfathomed means. No, for example, for American history, for the Burroughs book. So this is Hartford Nook. Hartford, who's going to be the one or the 5 spots who's going to represent the mini boroughs of Hartford? Who's going to be the one or the 5 spots who's going to represent the real boroughs of New York City? And we're going to we're going to play a game. That is no game. It only feels like a game. And we're going to mean stack games and games. Who trains? It hurts not one. So also, every single topic in the news, like with gun treatments, it's illegal to record police, but I had them record because I've been watching. I had the unfortunate phenomenon to be able to demonstrate our highest minority of internation FBI directors before Comey and Mueller involved with also people with the transition from ACA to RICO, involved with other natures of crime, where we have, quote, known and unknown criminal enterprises, all juxtaposed. Known also as criminally legalized ones there and here, in relationship to value nature system standards there and here, where each modern nation's history, now this is not just true about American nation's history. There was an organized crime here method entrenched here before our founders' births, with methods that had everyone else defending lies by using its base, causing all kinds of natures of crime, more than 99.9% of the crimes. What used color, those kind of things juxtaposed, crazy, crazy laws, crazy enforcements of them, with no one understanding, blaming other things as identity of value, as lie progressions, cover-up natures, defending that as pseudo-positive, fact treatment, pretended truth, and stuff like that, passions and emotions, per course, other than identity's actual reality, timeless, perfect science, valued perfect system to us. This was a method keeping all of the pretending they weren't lying, keeping all victim predators. Not just, in other words, our founders wanted us to examine this nature of organized crime. I will not tell a lie. There are proofs that George Washington, that especially if he said it, especially if he didn't say it, he chopped down, he came to Connecticut, CT, Cherry Tree, and he did chop down the fake branches. They had the really sick laws, but leaving them with that to an extent, with overt slavery left in Hartford/Wethersfield, Connecticut, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, coming to meet here with the French general, coming to semi-counter-extort and to force to coalition with Madison's plan, which he had to hide the extent of roles with. How? By staying invested, pseudo-positive, forced, enslaved fact-sheeting nature, used pro-crime method that was then and there and now used to keep, see, each age of fact-sheeting nature, they have people in the same classes as simultaneous nature, together as a sequence nature. And this, what exploited this republic is an ancient republic that was revealed by a quality in nature of fact-sheeting nature that was valuing individual, grouped, horizontally, vertically, means sexes and ages, as an expanding nature of volume, as identity nature, as an identity, as the identity of volume itself, even. All temporary / lasting values, even conceptual ones. Even especially regarding with this little rap guy and friends, what I'm talking about is how English was revealed to teach about how the identity share. The sciences share an identity. So A through Z, they share an identity. Even the space between the letters. Sometimes blocked off and sometimes not. And this is how we are a quality of diffusion. Unceasingly. This is how we are an unceasing semi-nature relationship to what will only stay everything complete nature, positive unto itself, and or positive and negative experience in relationship to its identity. Beginning of the Old Testament starts a little bit out of sequence, starts where physics are already juxtaposed, already bonded, and identity is speaking. This is good. Divides this from that. Positive and negative value nature are bonded with a little bit more of a semi-nature that's coming into and as the perfect, gaining value of temporary / lasting space nature. Here, as the cause of evolution, which is our nature's relationship to itself. The ultimate invention, the ultimate machine. See, the devil and organized crime method entrenched in modern nations before our founders, each modern nations had the sensibilities of each age of fact-sheeting nature as a sequence nature, valuing, fake emotions, passions, convictions, fake positive. Opinion nature that when questioned by authority, criminally foreign influenced, as our founders left themselves to have their identities stolen. All they could do was admit that the extent that they were forced to play roles with which they actually did, but they didn't know who did it, which was James Madison and George Washington, who forced the plan, which was to hide their roles, which was just keep speaking what is now pretended that's fact-sheeting nature. Then you have to debate with who knows the most facts, but they're obfuscating correlation nature, method. See, this identity is shared by both ratiocination and pseudo-ratiocination at the same time. We have psychology obfuscating this, recorded with physical delusions juxtaposed with original, uncharged, shared. Many nations with that. And then they have family members. Then they have social roles and needs to hide lie progressions with misprision criminality, needs to identity thefts, because they've been using, they kept the identities of each service, nature of service, millions of service people. Thank God. Everyone's a victim here. But to describe it as is necessary, you need free speech. And this is an organized crime method that requires a description of how originally and still the opinion natures of various natures of court were in collusion. At the same time with various natures interbranch and executive, all tied to that. See, I didn't read this. The Republic's about the president, the chief, as values positive, also odd to his positive self as value, as a chief, because native. Even if they all weren't here, even the ones that aren't here that died with the fake nation that was still not freed, that killed so many Native Americans, their value never went away. Leith of Hadiths. What goes away is what is forcing the science they were trying to defend, which was what is only positive overall body of value discernment and finite discernment simultaneously. When it is, it's caring for that individual first. See, we have individual force, not just groupthink, group force, because we have victim-predator reactions to what is exploiting, motivations, natures of crime, roles with it. They have those branches originally and still facilitated to that. So then they would then rely on that as fact-sheeping nature, as an identity used as weapon, looked away from and exploited natures. So roles. So they knew they could create lie progressions. Lie progression cover-up natures that would have to be self-motivated, valuing free speech abridged, identity thefts, worse, and needing to have the real positive, negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, like criminal insidious natures, acts like predicate acts, have them blamed on other things. Predicate acts are simultaneously value in relationship to the value and the value of its identity of relationship to itself that the shared identity has. To see nature is to see this course, this unceasingly valuable, increasingly valuable course that is realities, even greater than the identity of reality. See, we're in value nature systems that were built that knew that defenses of identities in relationship to that would have to be victims, and they would have to blame their fact-sheeping nature quality, lies and delusions, and evil roles on other things. To quote precedents, criminally foreign influence. Quote the identity thefts of our founders when they were still forced fake positive, fake entertainment of juxtaposed natures of crime per method, using that to keep each simultaneous nature valuing the same sequence nature, exploitations and denials that is hurting all. There's a tactically ulterior from actual value nature system where value nature itself is to show us the value of group and of the complete of all that, discerning what is positive to all progressions at once at the same time, and individual. And that's the method this unceasing quality of diffusion demonstrates itself, tied to even concepts like we're using invisible but still discernible when we're using words, speech. So English and the Trinity simultaneous, as a simultaneous nature is value, where itself is onto all parts of reality at once, as a perfect value progression. The Trinity, nature, and it's the value of itself, Allah, is a simultaneous nature. Only you can understand what Allah is when you understand that it's a simultaneous nature. What other people are talking about with other words for the identity of all things. When they're truly trying to think about, they believe that truly, that's what the conversation is about. But that's not being allowed, demonstrated, because of the nature of how we have value nature systems that each ignored. Each can't tell. We have each of the sciences, each of the campus defended nature of stewardships of what religions are, used for what everyone's valuing. So one's valuing that in the standards that built that, in the methods and natures that built that, blamed on other things and stuff like that. That self-defended then becomes reliant upon what keeps only let realized nature of law's nature's value being our own at complex litigation level, agreements, treatments of investigations of finite body of value and progressive value at trade center level, at Washington level, tied to shared policing of our jails, of our evidence reception. Also recorded all victim predator Oz, not realizing, pretending that to be college educated is what educated is. In other words, as a theater that is used as a weapon to keep what is inter-campuses recorded. From off-campuses maintaining on-off-campus position, invested, collusion through other media, which they knew the reaction nature. So they have them positioned, this person's family member works here at this college, this person, and these colleges work with on-off campuses placements into a value nature system that works on paper. But on paper, it doesn't work. And that is the cause, again, to negative value nature progressions, acts in nature. And that becomes time. See, this is a time imposition. Quality of fact, treatment nature. In other words, these are impositions that put upon each age of fact, treatment nature that are connected. Because this is a method that knew that they were going to make identities of branches and of all private tied to them, like that with prisons, medical corruption with psychology, juxtaposed with physical delusions of everyone, and tactically, criminally foreign influence, as sensibility natures preventing demonstration of how the sciences were maintained. As victim predator roles to jobs and sensibilities of theater positive with the names of campuses and things like that in a value nature system, they can't defend the value that Campus Marcius was revealed as by the species valuing individual areas, states, and nation sciences by and as the value of internation sciences, valuing the value of our species bond, which is in demonstration of identity's hierarchy of self, where this one identity is self-generating. And we are semi-self-generating. And also completely self-generating. See, but this is through systems that are criminally foreign influenced, and having had that justified with an as evidence reception justifications that had been anticipated, already had been facilitated, specifically to have that justified, in other words, to keep natures of courts and treatments of each age of fact treatment nature, of time, of the position of each person tortured, and needing to pretend integrity. In other words, our history was about how there was a crime method that was keeping everyone pretending they were integrity. And that's to date with the impositions upon women as the nature of labor, for example, as men too, but especially regarding women, where it has how you're not supposed to tell women to be tough. You're not supposed to deny the discernment of how, especially in exploited areas, and we have the means, but not through these value nature systems, through the ones where we all agree that each modern nation is in the same trap. It's recorded criminally foreign influence zoning laws that were with the fact treatment nature slavery of our founders are to the infrastructural pathology that was only realized. Could give some tools to people with no experience at all. I mean, they would get help in real life anyways if they ever even did that for an experiment. Could. By the way, what would happen if, like, in other words, instead of blowing out down all the bad buildings and stuff like that, if you put in the corners of the buildings, like seal up so it's waterproof and everything, and then put cement around the corners like a big, huge circle. Now you take away space, but now you make something so strong and so high, and now you can extend things out and make it like that. And you can bring, we can see what is blocking, because we're in a tactically denatured relationship to nature. And the alternative, as the alternative too, which is landscape theater. And as fact treatment nature, like with regards to the uses of the word environment. See, nature, right click on a word Office 10, Office 8, one of those. And it said that nature is everything outside of us, and then stopping at ourselves. Nature is the Trinity, and the Trinity's relationship to itself, and the value of that, which is the identity of all things at once. And to discern this is a quality of science that is juxtaposed with prayer. Not the ones in other words, as science, to the extent science is, where it's because now we're working with the identity that is before all finite value, while as the order of it. See, now we're working with 5 pillars as value before temporary space nature. It generated it, it's still generating it actively, progressively, and as value beyond it still a little more. 5 pillars. Because there are 3, the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall. 3 semi-natures as a complete one together. But only because at the same time, the simultaneous natures are a sequence nature as value, progression, right where that need is not enough on its own. And they're not enough on its own. And they're not enough together. But one way they are. And so the tomato keeps growing. And that's what it's a demonstration of. If we admit that and how, then we discern it. Then we discern the identity being blocked. Then evolution is forced. In other words, instant movement, but overall up. And you know, and claiming the bottom, lower, even, you know, from the lowest of the bottom, but claiming even the suburbs bottom, because that's what they were set up as. They first set up Hartford, Connecticut. The suburbs weren't good. It was like in woods. They theater. They have the right next to the Harriet Beecher Stowe house and the Mark Twain house. These novels and the concepts in them, like Uncle Tom. And this was for sensibilities that were in collusion with the nature of organized crime that I'm talking about. But I'm saying George Washington both did and did not chop down the cherry tree. In other words, and I will tell no lies. In other words, he's talking about how there was no free speech and how everyone was alive pretending it, because everyone was a criminal insidious in its nature. He's talking about how you can't make justify criminal insidious in its nature. See, but everyone's a job as a victim told to do that, and through a theater that was exploiting. See, most people are correlate to having these is in relationship to experience that is only natural because it was forced through criminal foreign influences. It's criminal insidious nature roles to and as what causes negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, our tactically denatured relationship to nature. And now that makes valued natures of integrity that are going to pretend their integrity that we are overall when it has that ignored. Because you can't fathom it through the money conversation. Value nature system tactically ulterior from realities. So each concept is like, it's demonstrated how they coaching areas with private and interbranch maintained, facilitated, juxtaposed victim predators with overt criminal enterprises, juxtaposed with them as undercover with areas. And this is recorded and confessed by them. Also them recorded offensively, pretending people talk about this in case they do, or before they do, with as identity thefts, faking conversations with people they don't know at all, after having spread rumors like that through each age of fact-cheating nature, telling people that aren't in the same classes, and someone in the same classes that were in different classes before that, like that they were in the same classes as those people, because they're spreading illusions, because they're exploiting off campus what they were, how they're doing worse than how they're hiding on campus life progressions. Per original state, all private tied to the branches, and all these nations share police sec with fact-cheating nature quality, and then defenses of that as law. So they ask questions to lawyers on CNN, on news stations, their own private lawyers. These are types of lawyers, recorded originally and still parted to types of law. So they have mandate, recorded, prevented. Then they have to pretend other, they're direct to pretend other. And that means they have to pretend integrity. Then they have to do that by pretending emotions and passions that are dishonest. and that stays a theater that is only realized on and as the value of each age of fact should be nature. And that's setting up everybody else. And knowing it has to set up anyone who has correlations. We have to make what is known and unknown by other nations on and off the records anyways understood. See, but we have qualities of fact-sheet nature with treatments of the past every day, the days coming up with courts, with fact-sheet nature, with treatment of the quality of human value through a value nature system that you can't defend justifications of without blaming the causes of the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures of other things, others, and ourselves, without exploiting and hurting more those hurt most by it, and by all the worse than denials of it, because no one could fathom how to do it. And that was anticipated, that was engineered, but greater than the force, and the only thing that surges through all things is means alone. See, so if we have someone who will help me as the species coach, someone on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, Twitter, just, especially from Hartford or New York or any state or any city, we'll set you up, and any nation too, with pantheism, same way. We'll do this. See, every nation is going to need different, because we have simultaneously, distinctly and non-distinctly, this worse than exploiting how each person, each branch, and each private tied to them, overt criminal enterprises, and unrealized and private, and all that juxtaposed, only that realized in relationship to the lie progressions with and as that shared, where everyone's telling the same lies, appreciated the same lies, delusions, and fake positive theaters, value to deny correlation nature simultaneously inherent active and progressive means per and as the real value of free speech. Let just one teach. So to admit this, then it only feels like a game. Because and then we know we have to be a simultaneous nature as a sequential nature. And simultaneous natures of reliefs that we can only bring as an identity from beyond the branches, while as their value. And that's with that value claimed as it is, recorded criminally foreign influenced, associated with the FBI with election crimes, and as crime rolls as tools, pretending to be against that. Against each candidate too, through time. This is per all that private and foreign police juxtaposed with overt criminal enterprises and with natures of convictions and opinions already valued by the past. And see, once that is valued, they knew that there would be a complete nature relationship, that the complete nature relationship has to itself as the only realized value nature of value nature transfer. Because that's what so there's the identity of all things at once. There's the identity of its relationship to itself. And that is as a value nature transfer. As the value of the Trinity. Allah. But even then, if you don't understand how it's all the other names too, as long as the person is trying to understand, this is a method that has God where distinctly from the name of the identity of all things, and that's too also obligated to the prayer beyond it to discern it. So, in other words, the simultaneous nature as a sequence nature's value, and as its value relationship to itself is going to be here or force from here, Leith of Hades. Stream of consciousness, that's inside of it. This is the fast mind. This is exploiting when you're a kid. They're making problems through other kids. Interbranch, recorded, juxtaposed with overt criminal enterprise of other nations, their family members maintained with positions, intercampuses, intersystems, maintaining as victim predators needing to hide lie progressions in relationship to fact treatment natures and investigations, whereas and how this was where everyone was offensive evidence reception crime predators and roles with theaters maintained from off campuses already and from on off them already. You know, a machine keeping all liars pretending they're not liars. So this is where obligations and sacrifices of each person, how that was valued. That is valued by, for example, how they negotiate prices, how the pay for each nature of job and stuff like that. That was anticipated because excuse me, identity has a course. Identity has a hierarchy course. That is this value nature transfer. And the value of that in relationship to and as everything as an only increasing nature of volume as identity. And as volume's value relationship, which is its nature. We are value as a nature, as forever nature, as the identity, as distinct from the parts of it, which includes even the body. Only the extent of it is debatable, because when we're little kids, we're not the same body as we are now, but the same identity. We are forever nature, as our positive and negative experience, not to what is positive or negative regarding time and regarding values in a system that is tactically ulterior and criminally juxtaposed, criminally foreign influence, needing to hide the same finite body of value, active and progressive. I had like the worst haircut. Maybe the same finite body of value, active and progressive lies, identity lies, sequence lies, simultaneous lies, exploitations of finite of sequence of exception nature, which is a demonstration of a quality of fact treatment nature needed to think that is being prevented, for example, by all these nations, not just because they're criminally legalized, criminal insidious natures, pretending they can be legalized as told to pretend. See, all that was what made that the naive reaction, justification of it, knew that it could play it further and invested that all to roles exploiting that originally still needed to blame other and others. So we have everything's used for torture, even the market's positions, the economic threats that everyone pretends not real because of the nature of the sciences, of the campuses, in relationship to value nature systems, our own means through tactically denatured relationship to nature, we're reliant upon and as what causes negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. So that has to make positive the integrity of the conversation about it stayed theater, as criminal insidiousness is nature theater that you can't legalize. That's one of the reasons the